We're
We're
recording.
videoing. Did we get what Steven just said? Because that was really good.
No, that was just recapping what y'all
But
already
let's
said.
put, so let's see if I can say it good. That it goes, what we just talked about as far as not being like, oh, well, that customer, can you believe them? Goes hand in hand with the authentic customer service of truly being yourself, so that it's not like the person leaves and you go, oh, now I can be myself again. Can you believe that person? But you're actually being, and I think of the word integrity with that too, being the same person in different situations and not being, kind of like, that's a great way to put it, like, oh, now I don't have to be friendly anymore. I can be a big jerk. Like,
Like my Christian
Well,
t-shirt.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
One of the things that I tell some of my younger ones is, I said, your interactions ought to be as if they were with your best friend, not the friend that you're trying to act like that you like, and then
That's
when
good.
they leave, you roll your eyes and start talking about them.
Right.
And so, because there's a big difference, and they may, face to face, it may be somewhat the same, but we want to have that genuineness that you're talking to your best friend type of thing. So.
And going back to answering the phone, like, this is we're going deep dive on answering the phone, but
Yeah.
it's actually good because
It's good
it brings up some of these other things. Going back to people versus projects, we can get that with the ICE and the whole thing. Go, yeah, we got that dialed in, but then totally forget it on the phone. So we'll be like, oh, okay, I got squirrels and I got to do the thing with them. And then the phone rings. Thank you for calling Publishers Out. This is Dave. How can I help you? Yeah. But it's like the vibe that is like, with that harried kind of, I was trying to call a freight company the other day because they called for delivery appointment. I was on hold. I had to call back, and they're having some issue through the phone tree. But like the person, and you could tell, I'm sure they were stressed because that's why they couldn't answer my phone. The phones are probably ringing off the hook or something. But when you get that, just kind of like, we'll go off rate. You're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I've ruined your day.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I was just calling. You left me a message.
Sorry,
I was
I
calling you back.
annoyed you.
Yeah.
Well, the phone calls are customers too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Prioritizing the customer.
Until they're a telemarketer,
Yeah.
then you can just treat them like crap. No.
No.
Well, and the other thing is, who answers the phone? And I would say the first level would be the person in the back room that is not not in front of a customer that can take that. Then it would be the person that is doing a task on the sales floor but is not engaging in a customer, and then the worst case scenario is the person that is taking care of a customer at the register.
Yeah.
And that should be the last person, but it does happen. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's a central location too, so it's
Right.
more likely that it's gonna be
Yeah.
sitting there. Or
Yeah.
I'm
The
pretty sure
beauty
I
is
look at
that
phone,
if
yeah.
you're on the sales floor, those portable phones, you
Okay.
can take it with you.
Clip it.
And so clip it on, and then that way you have it, so you don't have to run back to the register, or grab the one from the back, or wherever. So,
The other thing I would add to our outline here too is answering by the third ring.
yeah.
That's a general rule. Because if we set that as a rule, then worst case scenario, every now and then it gets to the fourth ring. But if you don't set a guideline, it'll just ring and ring, and nobody. We need that collective kind of like
Mhm.
race to the phone, where you get to yours and then you realize, oh, they grabbed it in the back or they grabbed it in the
Yeah.
front. But we're all kind of versus somebody else will do it. So was the guy you knew was like, I'm somebody, because we were like say somebody will do it, and he
Yeah.
was like, I'm somebody.
Yeah.
I do
He
all
got
this
a
stuff.
name tag that said somebody on it,
Somebody.
and they asked about, he says, well, somebody's gonna do it, so it
Somebody.
usually is me, so I just got my name somebody. Everybody is somebody.
Yep.
There you go.
Do you have on the list there of always scanning our tag versus the barcode on the back end?
I don't know if we do, but that is something. Now that it's on video, it will get added.
Exactly, it will get added.
I'm so glad we're doing this. It really
Yeah.
does help. Yes. So if we have a price label like our standard price label on a book, we always want to scan this. So we're always looking for this and scan this price label. Now there may be some cases where we don't have our price label. You can't find it anywhere in the book. Only in that case, and would you scan the barcode? And that's generally going to be a gift type item, a non-book item. If it's a book or a Bible, it's going to have this in the corner, and it's just straightforward, and you scan them. There are some, most gift items that don't have these. There are some that do, but in that case, then you go to that. But you're always looking for this first. Now let's talk about the label for a second while we're on there. These are both. I think they're good. If they're not good, she's gonna tell us that they're not good.
That one's almost good.
Yeah, this one is perfect. What are we talking about? We're talking about the placement of the label. So this is something that we're pretty, neurotic, yeah, like specific, we have very specific guidelines on how we want these labels, because it kind of goes back to the third ring example on the phone call. If you don't have a standard, these things just start going, and they do, even though we do have a standard, so just think how much worse it could be. But it's for a reason. I'm a big believer in, whether you realize it or not, your subconscious is realizing it, and that is like things either, like it's an example of a store where everything, we talk about the bookstore examples of Lifeway, one of them was dialed in and one of them was not. Well, what did that mean? Like, one of them, the books were messy and falling over. One, they were nice and clean, and the face outs and everything just looked nice and tight and clean. It's like when I came in here, they just read the sections, oh, that looks good. Now, describing why it looks good. Now, I can, because this is what we do at Bookstore. I say, well, because they've done a good job with the face outs and spine outs, and they have a good ratio, blah, 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 or whatever. But most people would just be like, I don't know why, but I just think that looks good, and I think this looks better than this. And so we talk about, like, if you look at like an unsolved Rubik's Cube versus a solved Rubik's Cube, the solved Rubik's Cube gives you a sense of, yeah, that's good. Where the unsolved one's like chaotic, and there's a lot of colors and everything's everywhere. And so that concept, you know, we've been using that for 20 years, talking about that Rubik's Cube, because it really does, like having things straight, consistent, clean, it gives our brain less input to filter through, and so we can then get to the content that matters. So if these stickers are all over the place, it's the unsolved Rubik's Cube. Whereas if they're all in the same place on the book, our brain kind of goes, oh, I get that, I know where to look for that, and now I'm looking at the title, and I'm looking at what matters on the book, and knowing I can find the price here. Otherwise, it just creates a much more chaotic look on the shelf. So with that, it's always the upper right corner, and this is a good example. It's hard to see because it's white, but just
An eighth of an inch.
Yeah, about an eighth of an inch, or maybe even a little less on each side there, that you're seeing book on the side of the sticker, and then perfectly straight. So you get, when I'm putting them on, I tend to like pull them a little bit on either side, because that keeps it from kind of doing that, at the last minute to pull it tight. This one is real good, except on the top, also I actually collect the sports cards. So if you're a sports card person, you'll get that, like the centering is a big issue if you're getting them graded, and whether it's mint or not. This one looks like an off-center sports card. When you see a big thick border and a thin border on a sports card, and that's interesting. Why are those worth more? Because it's more pleasing to the eye. This is a pristine example of the Michael Jordan rookie. It's worth way more. That's a good example actually to use for this. Why is, you show them a PSA 10 Michael Jordan rookie versus an 8, and go, this one is worth, I forget what it's going for now, but crazy money. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions at this point. Something crazy. Whereas this one's really good, and this one's like, but it's the disparity in price is just huge, even between an 8 and a 9 and a 10. So you go, this one's like, yeah, it's got perfect corners, it's glossy and everything, but it's off-centered. So this one's worth 100 times more because it's centered. So, wish that was the case here, but no. So yeah, this one, and again, I'm not going to redo this one.
Yeah, we're not going to re-sticker that. You'd rather crooked or re-sticker it.
Yeah. But if we're always kind of shooting for the perfect one, then when we're slightly off like this, it's still within the bounds of. But yeah, we don't want crooked. We don't want big gaps between the edge of the book and the sticker.
This one's pretty lovely.
Yeah.
That's perfection right there.
Yeah, very nice.
We'll
but
put some nice pictures up on the video.
Yeah.
Some
It's easier
examples.
when it's wide.
Yeah.
But you'll be able to walk out there and, hopefully you don't find anything, but, in general, it's really hard when you're doing a palette and you're trying to do quickly, but it's extremely important that we get it right, because what's going to happen is that's going to get transferred to another store, and then they're going to go, yeah.
Well, that Rubik is.
Yeah, you don't wanna-
You don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah.
Well,
It's
we
just-
joke like the guy from Elf. It's like 6-inch ribbon curls.
Exactly.
That's us with stickers.
Inches.
Inches. Yeah.
Yeah.
1/8 inch from the height of the book. 1/8 inch. But yeah, by these and just even all the other visual merchandising things we'll talk about later, create that atmosphere that ultimately it's gonna mean you're gonna stay longer, you're gonna enjoy your visit more, you're gonna, retail is detail. So all these things, do matter, and details, every one of them adds up into a big, you may go, any one of them by itself may not seem like a big deal, but it's the cumulative effect that creates a quality atmosphere that sometimes so much of this is subconscious. There are those of us that notice, I notice all the details, I'm one of those guys, and I think there are those of us that don't notice, but those that don't notice, I think are still being affected by it, whether they realize. I think it just falls to a subconscious level at that point. And it's part of just doing things with excellence, and just, and what do they say? Places that take care of the small details, you can trust them that they take care of the bigger details. So when I go into a place, I see things like that, it makes me feel better about the overall experience. I feel like, I can trust that this is a good place to do business. So next on our list, so this is something else as we continue the customer service section here. There are times when we'll get either requests for donations, or perhaps somebody with like a self-published book that wants to see if we'll carry their book. So we kind of lump the two of those together because they're cases where somebody wants us to give them something, do something, and then those can run the gamut. Like there's a lot of different examples. Some things that we will work with someone on sometimes, and some things that we won't. The point is, for the person at the front line, they don't need to worry about whether we're going to do it or not do it, or what we're going to do or not do. It's just when people ask any of those, they say, oh, hey, that's just something that's handled by our main office. Let me get you the email address for that. And then you can give them my email address, and I'll take it from there. So, that's my responsibility. All the person needs to do at the store level is just say, hey, that's handled by our main office. And it gets you, someone's like, well, but how do they do it? Do they do this? Do they do that? Do you think I have a chance of carrying it? Or do you think, what do you think they're gonna do? It's just like, hey, look, this, it's not something I do. It's not part of, but I can tell you that this will go to our main office if you send it here. I was on a promise last deliver more. We can't make guarantees. It's basically a solicitation is what it is. It's the same way with it's not that much different from we get phone calls every now and then, and it's a telemarketer trying to, sell whatever business loans, or, we get 1,000 different ones. Your local Yelp contact trying to get, to buy advertising on Yelp.
Maximize your Google page.
Yeah, oh yeah. So, we're here we have, a mission we're here to accomplish, and those things are people coming outside and putting something on our lap and going, you need to make this a priority right now. And, hey, we're here to serve customers. We're here to do everything we just talked about. So this will fit in if and when and where it fits in, but that's part of that personal boundary that we have to set. Just because someone's aggressive, just because someone's asking for something, just, doesn't mean that we have to, let them come in and dominate our time and our resources. So that's a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, maybe, of my mindset behind some of these things. But that said, they are welcome to have. That comes directly to our main. I would say main office. At this point, we have 3 stores. The main office is me, but I don't want them to have my name necessarily. You can find it easily enough on the internet, but I'll just put it this way: I've seen a little bit of everything at this point. There was one of them literally was waiting in their car. They found out from someone who was working in a store that I guess my name, and then they asked, well, when's Dave coming in? Is Dave coming in today? And they told them, oh, he's supposed to be here, at whatever time. So literally they were waiting in their car and ambushed, and I was just like, oh, I'm gonna get my bag, I keep going on, whatever. And they were, excuse me, like a reporter. It was so weird. It was like, hi, whatever, and they had their thing they were trying to sell, and it was like, yeah. So again, everybody along the way that was just like, oh, when's Dave? And they didn't know, because it could be somebody I had a meeting with or whatever. But that's why it's better to kind of have that firewall of just main office, email. That's how we'll handle it, you know?
And something else too, that's always good that I've heard pop up a couple times is, like, you don't ever want to tell somebody, like somebody comes in and asks, hey, is so-and-so working, or when is so-and-so working? You don't ever want to give any information about when somebody's working, because it could be a stalker, it could be any number of, like, domestic situations or things where, so that's probably something we should train everybody
That's
on, is
good,
that
on the list, yeah.
you say, so I'm sorry, I can't give you, I don't know their schedule, you know, you don't have to say, we have a policy that we don't provide that information,
Right.
you know, but say, I'm sorry, I don't know their schedule. Is there anybody that can give me that? No, I'm sorry, we can't give you that information, like,
Yeah.
just as general rule.
They can. If you're friends with them, look.
Right, yeah.
They'll tell you.
They'll tell you.
Yeah, you'll have to ask them. So, okay, so we talked about requests for donations, self-published books, that's just a simple, send to the main office, here's the email. And then the last thing I wanna talk about under the umbrella of customer service is what we're calling the golden rule exception. Okay, so, thought we'd give it a name, to kind of brand this concept, which is basically, kind of goes back to the solving customer problems, you and me versus the problem. Now, we know, okay, we have policies. So let's take, for instance, like the 60-day return policy. That's one where, and you know, I've drawn it up like this, and it's like, this is the policy, 60-day return. So, oh, you're 30 days, good to go. 59 days, good to go. Somebody comes in, it's been 73 days, it's there. What should we do in that situation? I know what I would like to have done for me if I'm in that situation is like, look, policy's normally 60 days, but we can take care of this for you, you know? Oh, wow,
Well,
thank
it's
you.
60 days in new and unused condition.
That's right, new and unused, but I'm just talking about the time aspect of it
Yeah.
right now, just for this example of, you know, that's a case where I go, you know, that, I feel like, so
Yeah, as
what
long
I
as-
do is I kind of draw
As
it
long
like
as it's
this,
still new and unused condition, then there's no reason why we can't take that back.
like, there's kind of an invisible dotted line around the main line where we're gonna be using personal judgment and how to use personal judgment in there. Well, it's personal judgment. I can't even necessarily like train it or write it up, you know, but the concept behind, that's why I use golden rule exception. Concept is, what's reasonable that if I was in the situation, and this is a different retailer, and I'm sitting there with the thing and it's been 73 days, what's reasonable that I would like to have happen for me, that I feel like if it didn't happen, I'd be kind of disappointed. Just kind of where the customers choose for a minute and go, yeah, we can do that. I'd want that done for me, and that's reasonable. Now, let's say the same situation,
Okay, with receipt also is part of it.
yeah, but let's say the same situation and, the products, you know, that they're trying to return is opened and creased and bent or smells like smoke or it's cat hair all over, or whatever, you know, thing. You go, and, well, that's a different situation, you know, you go, you know what, sorry, you know, that's where you go, it has to be like new condition. Situation, yeah, with receipt is part of the return policy as well. So there can be some cases where we don't have receipt. We can oftentimes look up the receipt. That is a benefit of the giving your name at the register, is we can track those and find them later on and look them up. There might be a situation where you can't look it up. It's got our price label on it. You know, every situation's gonna be a little different, you know?
That one's pretty, the not having a receipt one though, that, if we don't have any proof of transaction, I have done that one time where we had a guy who came in and he was wanting to exchange a Bible cover that he got for his wife for a different one. He had the item, he had our bag, and he didn't have a receipt, and we didn't looked up, and I'm like, okay, my judgment in this case is, yeah, this guy's not.
That's a good
scamming.
example, kind of the wrinkly bag that came with it, you're like.
You know, like, I don't think this guy's trying to scam me, he wanted just to exchange, but we'll have people that will walk in, grab something off the shelf, and I'd like to return this, I don't have my receipt, so, no receipt, that would be pretty few and far between that I would, no proof of purchase, but even in that case, you know, so especially since it's exchange. Like, why would you just gonna steal it, you wouldn't come to exchange it, you just steal the one you want and leave, you know?
Yeah, so the policy is the policy, it's there for a reason, but we all know that there are times when, and you know, manager may need to be involved in certain situations, where you're not sure, hey, I don't know if this is something I can do, let me get, but
Well,
the spirit of it is,
I would assume probably best practice is when there is a situation like that, at least to let him let your manager know.
Right, so that's where we're going after,
Yeah.
that's a perfect, and that's the second part of this, is whenever you do, let's say, you're here, you're closing, man, it's just you and the manager, and you go, look, this is a pretty easy one, I need to take care of this for this person. It's another case of prioritizing customer, and kind of going, they're here in front of me, I know what I need to do here. We don't wanna like trip you up in a situation like that, where you feel like, oh, I gotta go through the red tape of like, well, I can't do it, and now the customer's kind of, because they were trying to get to their small group, and I'm, whatever. Then you can be like, look, I know what to do, I'm gonna take care of it. And then we always say, whenever you do something that's in this outside the policy and this dotted line, just make sure you do tell your manager afterwards. Because every single time, it's like, hey, I did a golden rule exception today,
Yeah.
or yesterday, or 2 days ago. Just that there's that follow-up that you go, hey, I did this, so let me explain what happened, blah, blah, and then here's the deal, Bob Cover did this or that. And then, at that point, like, you will never, quote unquote, be in trouble or be, for coming to your manager and saying, here's how I thought to apply the golden rule exception. But the importance of having that conversation is, it might be like the manager goes, perfect, that's exactly what I would have done in that situation, thank you for taking care of that customer, because that's the attitude we want to have. Thank you for taking care of them while they were here. When somebody's like calling me and asking what should we do, and I'm like, man, you got the owner of the company on the horn over a $12 whatever, and this person still doesn't have their problem resolved. I feel horrible. I'm like, no, take care of them. Even if you come back and I go, man, we really don't think I'd have done it that way. I'd much rather you take care of them, and then we can use it as a training opportunity. Go, hey, next time, I think what I'd do is I'd maybe just offer them exchange, or now I don't think I'd have taken it, or whatever. But
Right.
Those would just become a training opportunity. But it's never you're in trouble. It's just a positive thing either way. It's either a great job or still great job taking care of them, and then in the future maybe here's some things to learn. And because you can never address every possible weird thing that could happen, never. So that's been our best way of trying to figure out how to do that versus trying to write down on a page. We had one the other day at the after Christmas return. Some places, if you buy it after November 1st or something, they'll give you till January 30th, like Target, and some places do that, I think. And so we had a customer was like, hey, I tried to return something I bought in the middle of January, and they said I couldn't do it. So we followed up on it. That would have been an example where, we want we want our employee to feel like, in that situation, oh, you know what, Christmas return, let me take care of this for you.
Yeah.
Or, I'm not sure, but let me check, with my manager first. And the manager will be like, oh no, we'll take care of this. But in this case, they said, nope, past 60 days, sorry, Charlie. And then they wrote up a review. That was like, man, and it was, this is the worst kind of review, actually. I'd much rather, the ones that are like 1 star, they're like, this place stinks. Because you're like, well, this is just some person's got an axe to grind, or, isn't reasonable. This was 3 stars. You're like, oh, I really love this store, but some things have burdened my heart, and you're like, oh no.
Be aware that their refund policy is
Yes.
very stringent, and and ultimately you follow up with the customer and you get it right, but you really can't take back that feeling and whoever looked at that review or whatever, and so
Yeah, please just take this into consideration. They're not gonna stand behind, and the tough part is,
Then there's the part of me though, it's like, I'm a rule follower, I'm like, that thing says 60
don't
days.
tell them this part.
I'm getting it in by
Yeah,
day
he's gonna go.
59, like there's rules or whatever, it's like that whole, like, it doesn't apply to me, like, I get a little bit fired about that, but.
yeah.
But I've worked retail my whole life, and so I'm
Yeah.
always like, oh, that's
Yeah,
nice.
see.
Two things. Andy's phone is at 20%,
Oh, fine.
and some of my workers need to take their break.
Okay,
So
yeah.
if we can pause for a little while, maybe show Steven some of the practical side of stuff.
That's good. Let's
around the store.
cut it at golden rule exception here. That's a good stop. So, but don't stop it. Did you stop it already?
No.
Okay. Let's just finish up this thought real quick, and then that'll be our
Okay.
stop. But you said I want it to be hardcore, but then there's just the reality of
Just real life.
retail
Yeah.
and people's expectations, and the fact that going back to that lady, we don't know this for sure, but there's a good chance that we could look her up at that lifetime value of the customer and go, oh man, she spent $1,200 last year, she spent $800 the year before that. Not on top of that, not that it's it's about the dollars, but that represents a lot of product purchase, that represents a lot of visits and a lot of positive interactions that we worked so hard on each one of those. And how many times is she out there telling people, I love this store? It's the most, person that's the most into it, the most invested, is the person most likely to leave that kind of review because they are so into it and invested. I've been that person going, man, I love this place. And the reality, and they could have been the person that was there on the first day you opened and telling everybody about it and going, I'm so excited about the store, and they're your biggest fan. The tough part is every customer looks the same. I mean, they're people, so you don't know, but that person might be, because I felt that way. How many times have you been somebody you go, I must have spent, I don't even want to know how many $1,000s I've spent at this. I'm getting old, so it's adding up. Like, or like going. We went to McDonald's on vacation one time, and they were like militant about whether we could use their bathroom. And I get that each McDonald's is probably franchised to different owners, but I'm like, the amount of money I have spent at McDonald's in my lifetime, and I'm happy to spend $1 here or whatever it takes to get. But it's like, come on, you're gonna hassle me about. I feel like I've been a patron of your thing. Or I met with. The other day, had lunch with Clint, who was one of our first employees at the Murfreesboro store 10 years ago, and he was saying, because when he comes in the store, they're like, "Oh, have you shopped here before? Or is this your first time?"
Those shelves.
Yeah, he's like, literally, see this scar right here? I was like drilling that shelf over there before the thing opened, or whatever, and so just that idea that, we laughed, but I was like, oh, we should put, because I had this picture of everybody when we had a semi truck, it was filled with fixtures, and when we were done, took a picture of the team sitting on the edge of the truck going, woo, we did it, and he's up there, doing like, again, 22-year-old version of him, or 21-year-old version of himself, and now he's got a second kid in the way, and he's 30, he's Thad's age, basically, that's crazy. And that in itself was like wild for me, because I'm just like, oh my goodness, how was it? I remember when I was 32, it wasn't that long ago, and now what? But yeah, so we're like, we need to put that picture up. So if anybody in this picture shows up, make sure they get the VIP treatment.
Yeah.
But this is the same way with customers. We just never know. So all the effort that we're going through, we just want to make sure that we don't lose it with just one wrong move like that. It can feel unfair. It can feel frustrating, because it's like, man, we're trying, but sadly, that is kind of the way it goes sometimes, is we can have 999 good experiences, but that 1,000th one goes south. And, so we'll do our best. We're never going to be perfect, and hopefully there's grace all around the board on that. But any other thoughts on the golden rule exception?
Nope.
Okay. That's a wrap. And
There you go.